Om Namo Narayanaya. Welcome back. Today we are finishing up Chapter 12, Creation of the Kumaras and Others, starting from verse 34. Once upon a time, when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds, as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his four mouths. The four kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest. The performer, that is the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in terms of the supplementary Vedas. Also the four principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties and the four social orders all became manifest. Vidura said, "O great sage, whose wealth is penance, kindly explain to me how and with whose help Brahma established the Vedic knowledge which emanated from his mouth." Maitreya replied, "Beginning from the front face of Brahma, gradually the four Vedas, Rik, Yajur, Shama, and Artha, became manifest. Thereafter, Vedic hymns, which had not been pronounced before, priestly rituals, the subject matters of the recitation, and the transcendental activities were all established, one after another. He also created the medical science, military art, musical art, and architectural science, all from the Vedas. They all emanated one after another, beginning from the front face. Then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas and the histories, from all his mouths, since he could see all the past, present, and future. All the different varieties of fire sacrifices became manifested from the eastern mouth of Brahma. Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion, and to learn this, there are four orders of life with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahmana created all these in systematic order. Then the thread ceremony for the twice-born was inaugurated, as were the rules to be followed for at least 1 year after acceptance of the Vedas, rules for observing complete abstinence from sex life, vocations in terms of Vedic injunctions, various professional duties in household life, and the method of maintaining a livelihood without anyone's cooperation by picking up rejected grains. The four divisions of retired life are the Vaikhanasas, Valakhilas, Ahundumbaras, and the Prenapas. The four divisions of the renounced order of life are the Kutikakas, Bhavodas, Hamsas, and Nishkriyas. All these were manifested from Brahma. The science of logical argument, the Vedic goals of life, and also law and order, moral codes, and the celebrated hymns, Bhuh, Bhava, and Sva, all became manifested from the mouths of Brahma, and the Pranama Omkara was manifested from his heart. Thereafter the art of literary expression, Ushnik, was generated from the hairs on the body of the almighty Prajapati. The principal Vedic hymn, Gayatri, was generated from the skin, Trishtup from the flesh, Anushtup from the veins, and Jagati from the bones of the Lord of the living entities. The art of writing verse, Panki, became manifested from bone marrow, and that of Bharati, another type of verse, was generated from the life breath of the Lord of the living entities. Brahma's soul was manifested as the Tuksh alphabets, his body as the vowels, his senses as the Sibilant alphabets, his strength as the intermediate alphabets, and his sensual activities as the 7 notes of music. Brahma is the personal representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the source of transcendental sound, and is therefore above the conception of manifested and unmanifested. Brahma is the complete form of the Absolute Truth, and is invested with multifarious energies. Thereafter Brahma accepted another body in which sex life was not forbidden, and thus he engaged himself in the matter of further creation. When Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased. Brahma thought to himself, "Alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny." While he was thus absorbed in contemplation and was observing the supernatural power, 2 other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma. The 2 newly separated bodies united together in sexual relationship. Out of them, the one who had the male form became known as the Manu, named Svayambhava, and the woman became known as Shatarupa, the queen of the great soul Manu. Thereafter, by sex indulgence, they gradually increased generations of population, one after another. son of Bharata, in due course of time, he, Manu, begot Shatarupa 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters. The father, Manu, handed over his first daughter, Akuti, to the sage Lutsi, the middle daughter, Devahuti, to the sage Kadama, and the youngest, Prasuti, to Daksha. From then, all the world filled with population. Thus ends this chapter. So, 2 thoughts. One, it says that Brahma created the military art, medical science, literature, etc., etc. But did all those things, if we read the history books, manifest at once? Not really. If you read history, you go really, really back, all of the world didn't suddenly appear. It was developed, created, and explored, and discovered, and synthesized, etc., etc. One even need only study the history of medicine to see how it's changed. Now, on the other hand, we did lose things. There have been things that were lost over time. There were medical science approaches that were lost during the Middle Ages, and that we had to rediscover. But still, if you go all the way back to Mesopotamia, these cultures didn't have all these things. They were more primitive in some ways. So, he created these things, but they didn't all just go, here we go. I'm assuming that's kind of not what the book is saying. Either that, or it implies that yes, everything was created, but it was all wiped away and something happened and we all lost this. Maybe that's true. I sometimes wonder what was lost. If the Library of Alexandria hadn't slowly decayed, what knowledge might we have today? I don't know. I think, though, the phrase that says one after another means that he created these things and they slowly were revealed, not necessarily all at once. The other thing is anyone who condemns homosexuality or trans issues or anything like that. I'm not saying I do. I'm just saying people do. They're very likely going to be turning to this chapter. You know they are. And going to say, hey, Brahma created man and woman to create the world. He didn't create man and man. He didn't create woman and woman. He didn't create a woman that thought he was a man. He created man and woman. And they are natural. That's what goes together. And if you take this as the word of the Lord, then that means the Lord isn't looking for non-procreating relationships. Or actually, no, I shouldn't say that, because that means you shouldn't date. I don't know what dating is. Anyways, is that what this says? I'm throwing it out there. Is this a condemnation of homosexuality? I'm, again, not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't. I'm really just opening the door to conversation so we can gain something from this, because otherwise it's just listing this person begot that person, begot that person, begot that person. But what does that mean for us spiritually? That's the real question. That's why we're reading this. What do we gain out of it spiritually? Just a list of names doesn't do anything. That's like knowing the order of the planets in the sky and what you can do with that. So I'm just simply pointing this out. The thought came to me to try to find some value here. I might be wrong, doesn't matter, but I opened the door for conversation on that or anything else you might be interested in talking about in terms of this canto. Love to have the conversation. Anyways, just appreciate you watching no matter what. And Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare